All right, guys, who is ready for some great speakers? We have got quite a lineup for you today. Not one speaker, not two, but 3 speakers today. Each one has got something spectacular to talk about, guys, and it is going to be a great day. First of all, look at all these guys in here. This is amazing. This is probably the best turnout we've had in years. Thank you all for being here today. Once again, today's topic is honoring our veterans. So thank you once again on behalf of Stillwater and everybody. Thank you so much for all you gentlemen have done for your country and for each and every one of us. All right, it's time to welcome out our first speaker today. His name is Jay Rothweiler. He is a member here at Stillwater. And guess what, guys? He's recently married. I noticed the applause was like a golf clap. Congratulations, Jay. Here we go.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Can I get an OH? All right. There we go. I'm in the right room now. Okay. I'm in the right spot. So I'm going to tell you guys a little story about who I am, what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like now. So once again, my name is Jay Rothweiler. I'm a member here at Stillwater. I'm also the foreman over at Dayton National Cemetery. If you guys are familiar with it, if you guys are ever in that area, if you ever want to stop out at the cemetery, come see me. I'll give you guys a tour. We'll walk around. I'll give you a little bit of history of the cemetery, and it's a good place. So I was born and raised in a town, Newark, Ohio, which is about 2 hours away to the east of here. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that area or not. Newark. Yeah, that's it. You're right. You're right. Sometimes people say we call it Newark, Ohio, but it's Newark, Ohio. So I was born and raised, typical normal childhood, mom, dad, younger brother, and then I'm going to tell you guys right now, alcohol and some other things are in my story. So if I offend anybody off the bat, I just want to let you know that it is in my story, and I don't mean to offend anybody here, but I am going to talk about what happened a little bit. So around the age of 13 years old, I was introduced to alcohol and some other things. And from there, my life changed a lot. I started focusing more on alcohol. I'd still play sports and still went to school, graduated from high school, but my first drink at age 13 years old did something to me. It was like something changed in me. I'm not sure what it was, but it changed in me, and I just absolutely loved it. No matter what I did, I wanted to drink and do other things with it. So graduated from high school. Went to Capital University for a year, sort of. I was sort of there, you know. I think my GPA at Capital was probably about 1.1, maybe, somewhere around there. It was not a great situation for me. So I came back to Newark after Capital and decided, you know what, I need to get my gear. I need to get my butt in gear here. I need to do something. So at that point, I decided to join the United States Army vet, and I thought, well, I've always wanted to do everything fast and furious and the best I can at anything, so I decided to join the Airborne, and I was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I've got about 45 to 50 jumps out of a perfectly good airplane, which my back and my knees will definitely tell you a story about that too. So at Fort Bragg, I did my service in the military. Drank through my time at Fort Bragg. When I got out of Fort Bragg, something happened. I saw some hands. Can I see some hands of veterans in here? Veterans, can I see some hands? I don't know if any of you were like me, but when I ETS, honorable discharge from the 82nd Airborne Division, I went back to the civilian world, and things were different. Things were a lot different based on some of the experiences I had in the Army. You know, civilian life was, I wasn't in a clan anymore. I was, the people that I was surrounded by, it was different. Nobody had each other's backs. I I was hanging out with the wrong crowd. And from that point on, I was married at that time, or actually holding someone hostage. Maybe she was holding me hostage, but I was married at that time. I got divorced in 2004, right after the Army. And from there, I went on a tear, what I call a tear. Almost 15 years of drinking and drug use. And I stand in front of you today to let you know that I've been to jail. I've been to prison 3 times. I've had, based on the decisions I was making, and all those decisions, I was moving further and further away from God. At one point during my addiction and alcoholism, I even thought I was God, which I know it sounds so crazy to me to say that right now, but I thought I was God, and I thought I was making all these decisions. I was really insane is what it was. I was kept making decisions that same choices, but expecting a different result, and the result was always the same. So I'll fast forward a little bit to 2015. In 2015, I had just got out of jail again, and something happened this time while I was in jail. My grandfather passed away, and I was really close with my grandfather at the time. And he passed away. The judge said I couldn't even go to his funeral. I couldn't even go to his visiting hours. I had to be locked down in jail on stuff that I did, once again, paying consequences for my own decisions. So in 2015, once I got out of jail, I called it 2 weeks of hell. What had happened in those 2 weeks, I barely remember now, but I do remember one thing for sure, that the devil was definitely talking to me. He was on my back. I was homicidal. I was suicidal. I was out doing alcohol, drugs, a bunch of other things that I shouldn't have been doing. And during that time, a friend of mine suggested to me, hey, why don't you try to call the VA, that 1-800 number, that 1-800 helpline number. And things got so bad. I was homeless, hopeless, almost dead. So what I did was I called that 1-800 number. I found I had like a little rubber band around my wrist that had the 1-800 number on it. I called the 1-800 number and told them what was going on. They sent me to Columbus VA Medical Center, which then in turn brought me to Dayton VA Medical Center, where I spent 2 weeks there on the psych ward, just totally out of my mind, really messed up, and knew at that point that, hey, I need to change something or I am going to die. I am going to die if I do not change something. So from that point, they sent me over. There's a program over at the Dayton VA. I didn't even know that any of this existed all the way up till 2015. So I went over to this program. It's called the DOM. It's a rehab facility over at the Dayton VA. And I spent this next 7 months over at the DOM. I got a sponsor. I started praying. I started listening to God. And, something strange happened. It's a God thing. It's the only thing I can tell you. I was, still struggling, especially, early on, first couple months, still struggling. Like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to quit drinking and doing all that other stuff? And so a sponsor in the program, he told me, he said, if you really want to quit, go outside right now and pray to God. Ask God to remove that obsession, compulsion. You know what I mean by obsession and compulsion? They're always thinking about wanting to get one more, always thinking about trying to get another beer or another drug. So I took his suggestion. I went out to the yard out there and I prayed. I prayed a truly heartfelt prayer to God, saying, God, please remove this obsession, compulsion up off of me. And it was a miracle. Just like, not a very good snapper. It was literally like that. And all of a sudden the obsession, compulsion was removed up off of me at that time. And I thought, holy cow, man, what is going on here? So what God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And what he did was, he leveled the playing field for me. So he took that obsession, compulsion up off of me. Now all of a sudden, I'm brought back up a little bit. So, okay. So the obsession, compulsion is removed off of me now. Now what do I do? What am I supposed to do? Well, that's just the beginning of my journey. That I quit. I've been sober now since July 27th of 2015. Still sober today. And I just praise God for what he's done for me. And you know, he removed that obsession, compulsion, and this is what, you know, once that happened, there was some work I had to do with myself. I had to really dig deep down inside myself and work with another man, you know, to try to get deep down inside myself to figure out what I can do better, how I can change. I had to change my thinking. Once I changed my thinking, my behavior started to change. About that time in January of 2016, over there at the Dom at the VA Medical Center, I had expressed interest. I said, you know, I really want to get back in the workforce. I want to do something positive. It's going to be part of my recovery here. And they said, hey, Jay, we have a job down here at Dayton National Cemetery. CWT, compensated work therapy. You'll be making $8 an hour, but you can start getting back into the workforce. So I said, yeah, I'm willing to do that. I want to get down there and try to get back a little bit. And 2016 comes along, and I've started down there, and I've been there since January 2016. I've been promoted to work leader, and now I'm the foreman there. And I'll tell you what, God is good all the time. Amen. You know, He is so good. I can tell you guys some more, so I could go on and on and on. I came to Dayton back in 2015. Really messed up, really almost dead. I was almost dead. I had a backpack with one change of clothes in that backpack. That's all I had. That's all I had on me. And today, just the benefits of walking with God and recognizing Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, it's so amazing. Not only do I have more stuff, but I have greater things than that. I have peace of mind today. All that chatter that was going on in my head, all that paranoia and anxiety and all that stuff, it's been removed, lifted off of me. And you know, God's given me tools today to help me every day just deal with life on life's terms. Life comes at us all fast, all the time. And today I'm just so thankful that I have tools and people that I can talk to that have my best interest at heart, you know, and it's a good deal today. Let's see where I'm at here. Okay, so the one thing I want to leave you with, when I was on the other side, I was all over the place. I didn't have a mission. Once I left the Army, I felt like I didn't have a mission. I was lost, you know. I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? The only thing I know how to do really good is drink and drug, but that all changed now. So what's my mission today? My mission, very simple. I like to keep things simple. My mission is to serve God and to help others. So as long as I keep those two things at the forefront, I try to help people. I still go to meetings on a regular basis. I still work with other veterans, try to help them out if they're dealing with alcohol, drug issues, whatever it is. So I try to go and share my experience with them and give them maybe a hope shot, like, hey, if an alcoholic drug addict like me can change with God's help, can go through that, any one of us can. Any one of us can. All you got to do is ask him for help, and he's going to be there, and he's going to help you. So once again, my name's Jay Rothweiler, and I think I'm at my time here. It's supposed to be a short time, but I thank you all for coming out and listening to me, and you know, I'll be available after the breakfast if anybody wants to talk to me or come see me. You know, and I hope everyone, all the veterans, happy Veterans Day to you, and thanks for sitting here and listening to me. Thank you much.
Exactly, guys. Let's give this guy a big round of applause. Jay, I just want you to know, all right, listen, your walk with Christ is going to be a lot like being in the military. You've got the best commanding officer in Jesus. He's going to be there for you. And you have got fellow soldiers out here, not only veterans, but everyone out here. They've got your back. You just stay open to us, and we will be right there with you, guys. Once again, let's give him a big round of applause, guys. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. I got you, man.
Wow. Powerful testimony. That's a big step to take, guys. Sometimes we all got stories hiding in our heads right there, and we just got to get them out. So thank you once again, Jay, for doing just that. All right, let's go on to our next speaker now, Mr. Tom Jones, head of the Honor Guard here at the Dayton VA. His topic is going to be the Honor Guard of the Dayton VA. So let's give him a big round of applause.
And I promise I won't sing. You're welcome. Good morning, gentlemen. I'm a member of Stillwater Church, a military veteran, and a member of the Dayton National Cemetery Honor Squad, which is the same thing as an honor guard. And also, if you look around, there's a few members of our honor guard that have joined me this morning, along with Jeff King, who is also in uniform with, he is with Bugles Across America. And Jeff renders taps at military funerals, an uncompensated worker. Our meeting today is about honoring all veterans for their sacrifices and service to our country. Our honor guard at the Dayton National Cemetery assures that all veterans interred there receive full military honors, and that includes a rifle salute. We will now have a short video from Channel 7 News from several years ago that explains what we do, and after the video, I will give more information about the Honor Squad. Steve, would you play that video?
The headstones in a perfect line, almost as though to be standing at attention for our veterans.
It doesn't matter if you only served 6 months, doesn't matter if you served 30 years. You're a veteran.
They served our country. They sacrificed more than most will ever know.
This country was founded on history and tradition.
And here at the VA, the tradition of full military honors at a veteran's final resting place was fading.
We do what we do because it's in our heart to do that.
5 days a week for more than 2 years now, the Honor Squad is here to show respect.
There's no better way to say thank you than to give them that honor in their last measure of respect.
Right now, the squad has about 40 volunteers.
We current and former members of the Armed Forces of the United States gathered to honor our fallen brother, who selflessly answered the nation's call when he was needed.
Every service has special meaning.
Adjutant, honor this veteran.
Hey, fire! Hey, fire! Hey, fire!
We've been out here when it's been 20 degrees and snowing. We've been out here in pouring rain. We've been out here the first year, 100-degree weather with long sleeve shirts because we didn't have any short sleeve shirts at the time. Doesn't matter.
What does matter is Father Time. None of these squad members is getting any younger. And what is troubling is the Honor Squad is struggling to get new volunteers.
I think the world is busy, you know, and they don't feel like they have the time to dedicate to it.
These Honor Squad members take part in as many as 9 services a day.
The name is Isidore Hawa.
Hawa.
All his life, Mr. Hawa loved his country.
Isidore was a veteran of the U.S. Army from April the 17th, 1943 to January the 3rd, 1946, and served in World War II.
Some of us have some serious health conditions, and we could use more help.
Army vet Sentimus Moss joined the squad less than a year ago.
I am here to support no matter what.
She is also the youngest.
When I'm on that pad and that weapon goes off and taps begin to play, my heart, no matter what day it is, no matter how cold, no matter how hot it is, I just get a feeling of joy. I am honoring my veterans who have served and who have given their all to the final tap is played.
People interested in volunteering for the Honor Squad do not need to be a veteran.
They're a remarkable group of people.
Just need to be willing to give of their time to honor those here at their final resting place. James Brown, News Center 7.
Thank you, Steve. Very touching video. I almost get tears in my eyes every time I see it. The video is a little dated. Our squad started in 2015, around Memorial Day, by Montgomery County Veterans Court Judge Dennis Adkins and others. The goal of the Honor Squad was to assist the Department of Defense personnel in providing full military honors to deserving deceased veterans. The Honor Squad is comprised of non-compensated volunteers and is mostly military veterans, but all are welcome to join, veteran or non-veteran, male or female, but you also must pass a federal background check because we handle weapons. A person merely has to have the desire and compassion to honor veterans. There is no charge to join, and uniforms are provided. We currently have about 50 members. The video said 40, but we're at about 50 members. But we always need more volunteers because members have to resign because of health reasons, age, moving out of the area, job change, and various other reasons. We serve in excess of 1,200 services per year in all kinds of weather, like Jim said in the video, from extremely hot to freezing cold. There are squads for each day of the week, Monday through Friday. We serve only at the Dayton National Cemetery and only for military veterans. Our Honor Squad's primary function is providing a 3-volley rifle salute alongside DoD personnel. The 3-volley salute originated in 17th century Europe during the dynastic wars when a ceasefire was called to remove the gallant dead and wounded from the battlefield. 3 volleys would be fired into the air to signal that the task was complete and that the fighting could commence. In addition, the Honor Squad is also trained to fold the flag, present it to the next of kin, and provide taps in absence of DoD personnel. We ensure that all veterans, even those that are unclaimed or without families, receive honors, and that no veteran will be buried alone. If you are interested in joining the Honor Squad, I provided on each table a brochure and a business card. You can also see me after the meeting, and I will give you my cell number. You can call me, and I can arrange for you to observe a service or two at your convenience to determine if you're physically able to handle the M1 Garand rifle. It weighs 9.5 pounds. And also, of course, we serve under all weather conditions. Our mission statement, I'm almost done here. Our mission statement is to provide proper and dignified military funeral honors at the Dayton National Cemetery and to assist DoD personnel in presenting a military type honor for the fallen veteran. Thank you for your time, and thank you to all veterans who have served our country.
All right, let's keep on moving. We got our main speaker now. It is time to introduce retired Air Force Captain Erwin, also known as Earl Morse. He joined the Air Force in 1977. One of his first jobs was that of an aeromedical evacuation technician, or flight medic. His first assignment was to fly with the combat medical unit at Pope Air Force Base, North Carolina, providing care to soldiers assigned to Fort Bragg. After another medical flight assignment, his last flying assignment was as an urgent aeromedical evacuation in the Middle East at Incirlik Air Force Base, Turkey. You guys got to understand something here. I got this paragraph of all these little acronyms and weird things to say. All right, let's keep going. While in Turkey, Earl was accepted into the Air Force Physician Assistant, PA, training program. He was later commissioned in the Air Force Academy in 1992. While in the Air Force, Earl became a private pilot. This set the stage for an even greater assignment. He retired from the Air Force in October 1998 and worked as a physician assistant at the Springfield Veterans Affairs Clinic in Ohio. About 300 of his patients were World War II veterans. In January of 2005, Earl spoke to fellow pilots from the Aero Club at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and asked that they join him to personally fly several of his elderly disadvantaged patients to Washington, D.C. to visit the long-awaited World War II memorial. Dozens of pilots agreed. On the 21st of May 2005, 6 small planes took off, carrying a total of 12 World War II vets to D.C. Honor Flight was born. Later that same year, commercial aircraft were used to fly large numbers of veterans from Dayton and Columbus. Word of the program rapidly spread throughout the country, and soon hundreds of applications poured in. A year later, Jeff Miller pioneered the use of a charter aircraft for veteran transportation in 2006 to form the Honor Air program in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Later that same year, combined programs to form the Honor Flight Network. 17 years later, over 250,000 World War II, Korean, and Vietnam veterans from all 50 states have visited America's thank you in the form of memorials in Washington, D.C. for their service and sacrifice of their friends. Honor Flight Network hubs are presently located in 136 cities in 42 states. For his work in Honor Flight, Earl has received a wide array of awards and other recognitions. Earl has been married for 43 years to former Clarice Stover of Middletown, Idaho. He lives in a mini farm in Butler Township, Ohio, raising chickens, turkeys, sheep, and guardian livestock dogs. It's a zoo. Sharing the chores on the farm with his 2 boys, David and Patrick, 4 grandsons, and 1 granddaughter. That is quite a bio you have, sir. Gentlemen, let's give him a great big round of applause, and let's welcome him to the front. Mr. Earl Morse.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, testing. Oh, there we go. Great. So, well, yeah, I thought it was. You know what? Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Thank you. One of the things that I've been blessed with is a loud mouth. My parents and my school teachers might object to, but for some reason it is for before we get
We are recording you, and the recording won't pick up your voice if you don't use the mic, so if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. But, yeah. So having been on flying status for 10 years, then I get my commission. I become a physician assistant. One of the things that I noticed, I loved caring for veterans. Veterans like my dad. My dad was a Korean War and a Vietnam veteran. And nothing against Vietnam veterans or Korean War veterans, but man, those World War II veterans, they were a little bit different. A little bit different. I found World War II veterans to be some of the most humble, most appreciative, most patriotic, stoic people that have walked the face of this earth. And let me clarify that for a minute. When I say they're the most genuinely patriotic, they know full well the cost of freedom. You don't have to tell a World War II veteran, hey, freedom isn't free. A lot of them have seen the horrors and the cost with their own eyes. They've lived it. So they are genuinely patriotic. And the most humble people you've ever met, there's a reason why their memorial was the last one that was built. Vietnam, then the Korean, and then finally the World War II veterans had a memorial. Because when I went up to every World War II veteran, I loved talking to them. What did you do during World War II? Well, I didn't do nothing. I did nothing. It's like, wait a minute, somebody had to do something. What do you mean you did nothing, you know? And then you have to like pull it out of them. Humble people. Being a braggart was considered a sin. And there was no way they would ever promote themselves when so many of their friends never made it home. So they're very, very humble. And stoic, you try to get a World War II veteran to sit in a wheelchair when that World War II veteran is not ready for the wheelchair, you got a fight on your hands. And we say, look, please, I see you're getting around pretty good with your cane. I see you're getting around pretty good with your walker. But when we go to Washington, D.C. and you tour all those memorials, we put a pedometer on somebody. 7 miles of walking around all the different memorials. I said, please, sit in a wheelchair. I'm not ready for a wheelchair. I'll let you know when I'm ready for a wheelchair. And I'd say, well, okay, all right. One of the things that I've noticed, and you're going to notice, is those veterans that hobble by, okay, the women will acknowledge you and they'll thank you for your service. But the veterans that are in a wheelchair, oh, they'll get hugged. They'll get hugged. Some of them will even get kissed. So you make your choice. What's that wheelchair look? Get that wheelchair over here. Let me take a look at that. Yeah. So we have to talk them into it. So they are the most humble, the most stoic. And when I say appreciative, every World War II veteran was raised during the Great Depression. They know what it's like to go without. They know what it's like to be hungry. You do anything for a World War II veteran, and they are so deeply appreciative. So you just fall in love. I fell in love with World War II veterans. I thought they were incredible. So in May of 2004, they finally have a memorial. I had about 300 of my patients were World War II veterans. I'm giving them all high five. Man, you got a memorial. What do you think about that? And they said, well, I'm glad I have one. I'm glad we have one. I just wish my friends would have lived long enough to see it. I said, well, what about you? Are you going to go see it? And every one of them said, well, yeah, they felt that a son or a daughter or their VFW, post-American Legion, get them out there. They wanted to go see it. But because they're my veterans, I'd see them 3 months later, and then I saw them 6 months later. And not one of them had been to the memorial. And worse than that, reality had set in. They were never going to. They weren't going to be richer next year. They weren't going to be healthier next year. They were never going to see their memorial that they waited 60 years to have. Being a private pilot at the Aero Club, I went out to the base, and Ron Smith was the Aero Club manager at the time. I said, Ron, I want to start flying veterans to Washington, D.C. They're my patients, and they will never get to see their memorial. Can I do it? And he goes, I think this is a great idea, Earl. In fact, I want you to bring it up at the next Aero Club safety meeting. We had 300 pilots over there. And on every single month, we would have this Aero Club safety meeting, and there'd be about 150 pilots in attendance. And I got up in front of there, and I said, this is what I'm going to start doing. If you want to do it, there's only 2 rules. Rule number 1 is the veterans do not pay a penny, because there's a reason why they were my veterans. There's a reason why they were coming out to the VA, because their life savings were gone. Their houses were gone. A lot of them were living in assisted living or in apartments, and they had to decide each month, do we eat or do we take our medicines? So I said, no, they're not paying a penny. If you want to volunteer with me, if you want to rent a plane and you want to fly them, you're not splitting it 4 ways, you're paying the whole thing. Then rule number 2, you got to take care of them all day long. You can't just fly out to Andrews Air Force Base or Manassas, Virginia and drop them off and go hang out with your friends. You got to take care of these people. I'll show you, as a physician, it says, I'll show you how to take care of a 70, an 80, and 90-year-old in Washington, D.C. That night, I had 11 pilots step forward and say, yeah, let's do this. Let's do that. They never met any of my veterans, but they wanted to do this. So here we are. We had free air travel, all lined up for them. We had to work out the details a little bit. How are we going to pull this off? We had to look at good weather. We had to look at a time frame that would allow us to fly 3.5 hours over the Appalachian Mountains, land in Washington, D.C., land in the Washington, D.C. area, get to D.C., tour the World War II Memorial, back to the airport, and then fly home 3.5 hours in these tiny little planes. Our first flight was in May 21st in 2005. And it was funny because once word started getting around about what we were doing, no way. There's got to be a catch here. You're going to fly people to Washington, D.C. for free? No way. So yeah, we are. We definitely are. We had to stage our trip. The night before the trip, we'd get all the pilots over. At the Springfield Airport, Young's Dairy, has anybody here been to Young's Dairy? Okay, I'll tell you, those people are awesome. We'd go to the airport and we'd say, could we please go ahead and have you cater a meal in for the pilots and for the veterans? Because we'd have the veterans there and their families there, because if they physically could not climb up into that little plane that was parked there, they weren't going. So Young's Dairy catered it for free. And we'd see if these veterans could climb into the plane. And if they could climb in, they could climb out. All right, good deal. We need everybody here tomorrow morning before the sun comes up. And this one son of a veteran, again, this is just too good to be true. Nobody would ever do something like this. This one son of a veteran, he raised his hand. He goes, let me see if I got this straight. Tomorrow morning, you're going to have my dad out here. And you're going to put him in one of those planes out there. Is that right? And I said, yeah. And you're going to fly him out to Washington, D.C. Yes, sir, I am. And he goes, okay. Well, how much is it going to cost to bring him back? And he didn't get it. Most of the nation didn't get it. And I explained to him, I said, listen, your dad is a member of a group of people that collectively and literally saved the world. All of Europe is free. All the Pacific is free. And thank God America is free. That just didn't happen. He helped make it happen. And if you had an opportunity to take George Washington to the Washington Monument or Abraham Lincoln to the Lincoln Memorial, would you do it? Well, yeah, I would. Lincoln and Washington, incredible people. Neither one of them saved the world. We get to take your dad to his memorial tomorrow morning. Then he got it. But it was quite a bit of convincing. The very first flight we took out of Springfield, the first flight, one of the pilots that was going, his brother-in-law, is Jeff Hirsch, a reporter out at WKRC in Cincinnati at the time. And Jeff Hirsch calls me up and goes, hey, is this Earl Morse? Yes, sir. You're doing a flight of veterans to Washington, D.C.? World War II veterans? See them? Yes, we are. Well, our station would like to cover that. Do you mind if we go? And I said, these are tiny little planes, okay? They only seat 4 people. I said, if you and your cameraman's going, that's 2 World War II veterans that are not going to see their memorial. Yeah, kind of defeats the purpose, is what he told me. I said, yeah, you're right. So I didn't give any more thought to it until about a week before our first flight. Jeff first calls me up, and he knew I was a physician assistant. He goes, hey, Earl, this story isn't dead, but it's on life support. It's in the ICU. I said, well, yeah. And he said, we think we might have a way to go out. The station may pay for us to go out to Washington, D.C. to cover you folks when you come in. I said, yeah? What's the story there? So the young man from Dayton was killed over in Iraq. And he said he's going to be buried on Friday. And I'm talking with the station manager, the station chief, to see if we can cover his funeral. And then the next morning when you folks come in, we could go ahead and cover your story. I said, okay. And then he said, it's a go. We're going to be there. Could I get you to go ahead and show the video, please? This is the first honor flight ever.
Last year, a memorial honoring our 16 million World War II veterans opened in Washington. However, the trek to the nation's capital is difficult for many of those vets who are now well into their 70s and 80s. In Ohio, a group of volunteers is doing something about that, making sure their sacrifice is not forgotten. Jeff Hirsch from our Cincinnati station WKRC explains.
November 69er X-ray, right turn Bravo 2, taxi to the east ramp, monitor ground point 8.
They came from the skies, as so many of them had done before, decades ago, saving the world, no questions asked. But if there ever was any question about what era they belonged to, you only had to listen.
Hi, boys!
They came this time in a squadron of 7 small airplanes, one after another, bringing old men to see something which belongs to them, but which had seemed impossibly out of reach.
Well, I never thought I'd make it, really.
The passengers, a dozen World War II veterans.
The name of our program is Honor Flight.
The pilots, all volunteers from Ohio.
The first night that I asked for volunteers to help out, I had 11 people volunteering to donate the $400 to $750 it takes to rent an aircraft for the full day.
The destination?
Taylor, welcome to Manassas and to Washington area.
I enlisted on my 17th birthday, January 21st, 1942.
Until Honor Flight, veterans like 80-year-old Leonard Loy had no chance to make it here. Too infirm for a 10-hour car or bus ride, not rich enough for a plane ticket, Loy would have lived out his days unable to see America's thank you. That is until Earl Morse, a physician's assistant in Springfield, Ohio, asked Loy, one of his patients, a question.
You know, do you have any plans of going? Will you ever see your memorial? And his answer was no, no, no.
But Morse, a former Air Force medic, said something else. I'm renting an airplane. Want to go?
I was ready for him to say yes or no, or let me discuss it with my wife. I wasn't ready for him to start crying. And that's when I knew that we were on to something.
And so Honor Flight was born. Leonard Loy joined the Navy, took part in 4 invasions. William Taylor joined the Army and ended up as a German prisoner of war. To Taylor as well, the memorial was just a distant dream.
No, I never thought I'd ever make it. But when I did, why, it's because somebody else cared.
Taylor navigated his memorial in a scooter. A stroke 10 years ago made so much walking impossible.
Just sit here and relax. Soak it all up.
Soaking it all up meant remembering the fallen. More than 400,000.
Thinking about them.
Thoughts of what could have been, should have been.
Well, I wish that all of them that passed away before it was built
couldn't see it.
The volunteer pilots would like to bring more veterans here, one group a month through the summer and the fall. And time truly is of the essence, because since planning for Honor Flight began back in January, 9 of the World War II veterans who wanted to come here have passed away. 160 more are on the waiting list in southwestern Ohio alone.
I know that that is an insurmountable task. But when I'm their age and I'm sitting in a wheelchair on my front porch asking myself, you know, what have you done with your life? What have you done that has been significant? Hopefully I'll be able to look back and say that I did everything I could to get the greatest generation of veterans to their memorial.
For CBS News, Jeff Hirsch in Washington.
What a program. The fact is so many of those folks are really getting on in age. 1,500 veterans.
I'm struck to this day how I told Jeff Hirsch it's an insurmountable task. 160 on the waiting list. You flew 12. Jeff said, how are you going to do this? That question haunted me for a lot of years. In fact, at the end of the first year, I mean, we flew in 6 airplanes, and then the next month we had 8 airplanes, and then we had 12. We got up, every month we were flying, we got up to 24 airplanes taking off one right after. It was so cool. At the end of that first year, we'd flown 126 World War II veterans. We had over 800 on the waiting list. That story there was actually the beginning of what I felt at the time was a curse, because there was only one honor flight hub in the entire nation. We were getting calls. I mean, that was a piece that went nationally. Jeff Hirsch came up from Cincinnati, and he called me up on the phone a week before it was to air. He goes, Earl, CBS headquarters saw this, and they want to show it nationally. He said, call your veterans. It's going to air Memorial Day morning. I'm calling up all my veterans, Willie Taylor and Leonard Lloyd. I'm calling all of them. Hey, get everybody around. Gather everybody. You're going to be on national TV tomorrow morning. That story aired, and it was what was really pretty cool is, you know, like a week later, a month later, Willie Taylor comes in. I said, Willie, did you see yourself on TV? He goes, yeah, I did. I said, did your family see it? And he goes, we had everybody come over to the house. They all saw it. I said, what'd your family think? Willie said, my grandkids don't look at me the same way anymore. I met his grandkids when he passed away. I met his grandkids at his viewing, at his funeral. I was expecting grandkids. No, they were grandkids. They were adult men who came up to me. They said, thank you for what you did. They started telling me stories about the only stories that they knew about their dad had nothing to do with his time as a POW, but they were sharing, they didn't tell their stories. They told me stories about their dad. They said, Dad, he worked on this farm, and he said, we had the best sledding hill in our entire county. So every morning, Dad would get out there, after a good snowstorm, he'd be out there in the tractor clearing the path to the hill, and he said, and then he would groom the hill. I said, wow, your dad's awesome. That's great. He goes, but he would never stick around. He would never stick around. We'd say, Dad, why don't you stick around? Watch the kids coming down the hill. Let them thank you for what. He goes, no, I'm going to head on into the house. And my jaw dropped. 7 years I've been treating him for frostbite. He was, as a prisoner of war, the first thing that the Germans did when they captured him at the Battle of the Bulge, they took his boots, they took his coat, they took his gloves. And I said, why? And he said, because they didn't have it. It was at the end of the war for the Germans. It was their last-ditch effort. So they took the spoils of war so they could stay warm. He harbored no grudge against these people, but the consequences of his frostbite for the rest of his life, his feet were cold and they burned. And in cold weather, they really burned. I couldn't believe he would get up every morning and go groom that field on a nice snow day for his kids, for his grandkids. And I told him, I could tell you why your dad didn't stick around. They were in awe. They didn't know the story. Oh, Lord, the stories I've heard over the years. The stories that I have seen over the years. Here's a good one. we pull up to the World War II Memorial, and of course, the mall in Washington, D.C. is the headquarters for everybody who wants to protest anything. If you want a national audience, you go to the mall in Washington, D.C., and you protest. Well, this is some big protest where they gathered up at the Washington Monument, and they are going to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Well, to do that, you got to go through the World War II Memorial. Hundreds and hundreds, perhaps thousands of people marching through the World War II Memorial. We go to pull up to the World War II Memorial, and the buses are there. And I warned all the veterans. I said, listen, they're going to be protesting. Some of those veterans on that bus, they were ready. They were ready. That's my memorial. They're protesting around my memorial? Oh, we're going to have words when we get out there. Whoa, 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 whoa. I said, slow down. You're the reason why they're protesting. You gave them the freedom to assemble. You gave them the freedom of speech. You're the reason why they can get out there and they can say what they want to do, that they can protest, because you secured that. You want to blame anybody, blame yourselves. It was so cool because when they started getting off the bus, and there's hundreds of people marching, they're chanting, they're carrying signs. It was Moses parting the Red Sea, boy. Those World War II veterans walked up there and everybody stopped. And first one and then a couple, and then they all started applauding these people. They realized, I don't care what political side of the fence you're on, there's a reason why you can protest. There's a reason why you can vote. There's a reason that we can assemble. Another time, you get there, and now, fast forward 2022, there are large groups that show up on the same day. We will have 12, 15, 18 Honor Flight Network hubs all across the country showing up on the same day. To get everybody herded to where they need to go is tough, especially when they are in the midst of a crowd that loves them, that reveres them. So here we are. You're on a firm time hack in military terms. You got to be there. The only firm time hack we have is Arlington National Cemetery. When we go in to watch the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown, you got to be there. So I'm trying to round up these veterans. Come on, let's go. And you start getting a little angry. And I've learned over the years, go up to them and say, get on the bus. We've got to go. And there's these World War II veterans. There was two of them. They were surrounded by all these school kids because during the summertime, all these 8th graders descend on Washington, D.C. It's their school trip. And they're all over the place. And these two veterans were surrounded by all these kids. I said, come on, we got to go. Do not make me take my belt off. Get on the bus. I just joking around with them, but you got to get on the bus. And I explained to the kids, these guys have got to go. We got to get out of here. And this one kid, in this group of kids, these school kids, and he said, can we pray for you? Not your average school. It was a religious school. I didn't know it. They weren't wearing uniforms. They said, can we pray for you? And the veteran said, okay. And they all got together and they held hands and prayed and hurry up with the prayer. Then we start getting on the bus. We start heading over to the bus. And I don't know what their religious faith, I didn't even know if they were religious. I told them, I said, look, I'm sorry if they put you on the spot. If that was awkward, I want to apologize. veteran told me, he said, no, that was one of the things we were fighting for. Here we are. We're in a church. We're prayerful men. We can worship or not worship God, however we choose. That came at a price. That came due to the service and sacrifice of so many people that have gone on before us. So many incredible stories I've seen over the past 17 years. But I do want to show you what Honor Flight looks like today. So we got a video here. But before I run this video, there is a guy that you're going to see. He's got on a yellow jacket. And he starts talking about his wife. No, we do not take wives, spouses with us on these trips. Unless the spouse also served. The guy that's going to talk about his wife, he was a pilot. Burma, China, India. Flying DC-3s over the hump. His wife was a nurse. An air evac, one of the very first air evac nurses ever. And they sat on that waiting list for 2 years. All right, let's go ahead and show the video. Okay. Okay. It shows that there is a, now we charter jets. Big chartered Airbus A320s, 747s. We've chartered 747s. All right, anybody want to guess how many veterans you can fit on a 747? Oh, pretty good, pretty good. 420, depending on the configuration, 420. So we got all these buses that have to meet the airplane. And when you have 15 buses that have get around Washington, D.C., not everybody goes to the same memorials at the same time. I've seen 2 747s come in loaded with veterans. And when we show up in Washington, D.C., baby, we show up. We go under police escort, which is really pretty cool. You got to pay for it, but there are so many veterans that they're in awe that, like the President of the United States, they get police escort around Washington, D.C. It's really pretty cool. I've seen and heard a lot of things on these trips. The most powerful thing I ever heard was this veteran. We had went to Houston, Texas. We were doing an honor flight out of Houston. Now, keep in mind that their very first flight, that cannot be done unless there's somebody else with them that has been on an honor flight. Somebody who has trained their people to care for these veterans. So there's got to be this overlap of experience. There's got to be this overlap of knowledge. So I went to Houston. I gave him Guardian training. We get to the plane the next day. We fly out to Washington, D.C. Now we're flying back. Now I can relax a little bit. Everybody's safe on the plane. And I'm talking to these veterans, and I'm saying, so where did you serve? What did you do? And this one World War II veteran, he said, man, I served in a lot of places, a whole lot of places. I said, we got a 3.5-hour plane ride. You got time to share with me where you served. He said, well, I started off with Patton in North Africa. He was with the Army 2nd Corps with Patton in North Africa. After they won North Africa, they defeated Rommel, the German tank command, blah, blah, blah. Then they went to Sicily, fought across Sicily. And back then, believe it or not, if you liberated a country, it wasn't over. You went to the next country. And if you lived through that, then you went to the next country. Then he went to Italy. And then after Italy was liberated, freed, and he was still alive, then he went to France. And working his way across France. And then he went into the Rhineland. If you've ever seen the series Band of Brothers, this guy was in it from day one to the end of the day. And then the plan was that they were going to get on troop ships, sail through the Panama Canal, and then go fight over in the Pacific. It was literally a world war. Leonard Lloyd that they talked about, he took part in 4 invasions. 3 of them were in Europe. 1 of them was in the Pacific. Literally a world war. And I'm asking him, I said, wait a minute. You fought in North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France, the Rhineland. I said, how long were you on the front lines? I said, about 2.5, 3 years. I said, that is incredible. I was sitting beside somebody who had fought on the front lines for about 3 years. I could not believe it. And what gripped me at that time was, how on earth did he get out of bed every morning? If he had a bed to sleep in, what motivated him every morning to get up and go fight for this country? I wanted to tap into that knowledge. I said, what got you out of bed every morning to do what you did? And I could tell that nobody had ever asked him that question. And the reason why I knew that is because he didn't have an answer. He sat there and he's thinking, and the silence got kind of awkward. It got kind of so awkward that I did one of the stupidest things I ever did in my life. I offered him a suggestion as to what got him out of bed every morning, like an idiot. I said, so were you fighting for your friends, your buddies on either side of you? Is that what kept you going? And right away, no, I did not fight for my buddies. I mean, it was sharp. And I leaned back. He said, all my buddies were dead. He said, on either side of me, he said, I had replacements. In fact, I had replacements of replacements on either side of me. We didn't make friends. I was not fighting for my friends. So I waited. I shut up there because he was still thinking. He was still thinking. And the next thing that came out of his mouth was so profound. After a while, he said, I was fighting for my wife that I'd never met yet. I was fighting for my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids that were not conceived yet. Think about that for a minute. 16.1 million Americans served during World War II. And every one of them that survived, they came back and they went ahead and they had kids, and they had kids, and they had kids. How many people in this room know of any family member on either your side or your wife's side that served in World War II? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, just about everybody. There was somebody fighting for you. There was somebody fighting for you to be here today, to live the blessings and the freedoms and the liberties that we enjoy today. Somebody was fighting for you. Somebody was willing to die for you. Getting them to their memorial was the least that I could do. The least that I could do. When I talk about the very first flight and how much it was a nightmare for me after that, and I said, it's insurmountable. I can't do it. I'd work all day at the VA and I would come home and I would write letters on my computer. Thank God for word processing, because I would just cut and paste. I'd write letters to Procter & Gamble. Their headquarters is right down here in Cincinnati. I wrote letters to Ford, GMC, anybody I could think of, pleading, asking for some help. It never came. It never, ever came. When the phones would ring, quite often it was, when's my dad going on a trip? He signed up. Where do you live? We live in Kansas. When is my dad going on his honor flight trip? So I don't have an answer for you. We got over 800 people on the waiting list for next year. What do you mean you don't have an answer? Don't you know who my dad is? He has 3 Purple Hearts. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not going to be able to get to your dad. And then other phone calls would be, you can take my dad's name off the list. Or take my husband's name off the list. They died. And I just knew, oh man, I just knew if I would just write a better letter to Procter & Gamble, Ford, Chrysler, Waffle House, anybody, that we would finally get some support. It never came. It never came. We started in 2006. We had over 1,000 people on the waiting list. We had one flight scheduled for March. I wasn't sleeping. I was exhausted. And I cried out to God. I said, God, how could you do this? You put this desire on our hearts. You gave us national press coverage. Nobody's donating to our organization. I said, World War II veterans, didn't they save your chosen people, the Jews? Didn't they liberate those concentration camps? I was so angry at God. I cried out to God. I said, I love them so much. How could you turn your back on these people? And God spoke to me that night. And I don't know if he speaks in baritone or bass. And anytime somebody says, well, God talked to me. And I'm like, yeah, right. But he talked to me that night. And God said, Earl, I love them more than you will ever comprehend. I love them more than you will ever fathom. We got this. And I came to bed, and I heard in my spirit what God had said. And I come upstairs like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was so happy. I was overjoyed. And my wife goes, wow, you're happy. And try not to wake her up, but I did. And I said, yes, I'm happy. She goes, what happened? Did you hear from Procter & Gamble? Did Ford get back? No, I heard from God. She went, what? Okay, thank you. 2022, we flew 126 veterans that first year. 2022, we went over 250,000. We're in 136 cities all across the country. And what I thought obviously was insurmountable, it's not insurmountable for God. There is nothing. Thank you. Gentlemen, I'll tell you right now, if God puts on your heart something for you to do, no, you can't do it. I don't care what it is. You alone can't do it. You and God, that's a majority. And I'm here to tell you that. All right. Let's look at that video where Honor Flight's at now.
The memorial is breathtaking. In my mind, the memorial represents freedom for the world. To this day, all of the Pacific is free, all of Europe is free, and thank God America is free.
Honor Flight provides, at no cost to the veteran, the opportunity to see the memorial that the American people have built on our national mall. And I think that there's probably no better organization out there today that can provide something to somebody for nothing.
If anyone wants to see the importance of Honor Flight, look into the veterans' eyes and how they tear up when they are brought here.
You guys ready to go? Yeah, ready to go.
We'd like to thank each and every one of you. It's truly a privilege to serve you today.
Yesterday, the December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
When they walk into that memorial and they see that their friends will never be forgotten, that the sacrifice that they paid will always be cherished, always revered, always honored by this nation, they're taken back by that. For the World War II veterans, this is their last hurrah. They don't have reunions anymore. Most of their comrades in arms have all passed away. Quite often, they are the sole survivors of that tank crew or that ship or that air crew. Bringing them into their memorial, they come there representing all of their friends.
Just have to remember where so many comrades are laying out there yet. And just one of these things, you know, before I die, I wanted to see it. Now I go home, and if I croak, so what? I did it.
I'm just sorry my wife couldn't be here. She died about 6 months ago.
The best program I've ever been associated with. You know, we're all in the same fraternity. If it hadn't been for these guys, I don't know where we'd be today or what language we'd speak.
I say about the terrorist Al-Qaeda, if it weren't for these guys, we wouldn't have to worry about terrorists today. We'd already be occupied. We'd already be a different country. So we owe them a lot.
There are families that we will call up and say, we have a seat available for your dad, only to be told that Dad did not survive the winter. We're racing against a clock. In another 5 to 7 years, it'll be a moot point. They will be gone. We're working as fast as we can, but we need so much support from so many people to make these dreams a reality. This is probably the last chapter in their lives, and for some, it's literally the last paragraph of their lives. What a way to end their stories.
This has been one of the really great days of my life.
I'm sure glad I was able to live long enough to see it.
And that always kind of chokes me up. Senator Dole, he was always there. He was always there welcoming everybody to the memorial. An incredible man. I understand in our midst we actually have a veteran that went on an honor flight. Sir, you want to raise your hand? Did you go on an honor flight trip? Did you have a good time? Yes, sir. Did you get your money's worth on that trip? Good. I got one last thing I'd like to leave you gentlemen. John Stuart Mill, he's a British philosopher, and he said, war is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling that thinks that nothing is worth war is much worse. The man who has nothing that is more important than his own personal safety is a miserable creature who has no chance of being free unless made so and kept so by the exertions of better men than himself. And on our flight, we get to hang out with the better men and the better women. When I tell you that it was insurmountable, I couldn't see how I was going to do this. God was going to have to pull this off. And God was right. But I've come to the understanding, the realization that when I told God how much I loved the veterans, and God said, I love them more than you will ever fathom, more than you will ever comprehend, He didn't finish that sentence. What God says is, I love them all. Every one of us. Every man, woman, child on this earth. He loves us all more than we will ever comprehend, more than we will ever understand. And I asked for a show of hands. I said, how many people had somebody willing to die for them that served in World War II? Every hand went up. Everybody had a family member. Well, there's somebody else that lived and breathed and walked and was willing to die for you, for your happiness, for your peace, for your joy. His name is Jesus Christ. He did. I'll tell you to your face he did, because he's real to me. He's a man of God. That's kind of an exaggeration. All I know is that I love God because he loves me. That much I do know. And that any time that I do what he puts on my heart to do, he blesses that. Why? He created it. For you that are in this audience, whatever he has put on your heart to do, he put it there. You draw close to God, you commit that to God, you commit the desires of your heart to God, and just stand back and watch. He will use you. He used me, man of God. That's so above my head. I just love God. I just want to serve him. That's it, just like you do. That's it. I am so humbled that I was invited here to speak today. Thank you so much for having me. You have no idea what a privilege it is to get in front of a group of people and give credit where credit is due. Praise God for everything he's done for all of us. Thank you all. God bless.